The Thought Merchant. Prologue. In a distant future, thoughts can be taken out of the mind and turned into pure energy spheres called essentials. These are sold as luxury items. The most valuable thoughts are creativity, love, and joy. But there are also forbidden thoughts, labeled as dangerous because they can shake the foundation of society. The main character, Elias Kern, is a well-known merchant, famous for finding rare and precious thoughts. One day, during a deal, Elias receives an essential containing a forbidden thought. He does not know who created it, but he immediately feels it is different from any other. When he tries to sell it, he is hunted by a secret group called the Conservatory, which controls all thoughts. Elias must decide, destroy the thought to save himself, or risk everything to share a truth that could change humanity forever. Chapter 1. The Discovery. The market of thoughts was full of lights and possibilities. Elias Kern stood in his small shop, watching the crowd. His store was filled with glowing spheres floating on glass shelves. Each sphere shined in different colors: blue for calm, red for passion, green for inspiration. Business was good, and customers came and went, hiding their desires behind greedy eyes. That evening, a strange woman entered his shop. She wore a black cloak, her face hidden under a hood. Without speaking, she placed a sphere on the counter. The sphere was dull, gray, and unremarkable. Elias picked it up, feeling a soft vibration in his hands. "What is this?" he asked, scanning the sphere with his analyzer. But the device showed nothing. It was raw, unregistered. "A gift. And a danger," the woman said in a low voice. "Do not let anyone see this sphere. They will come for you." Then she left, leaving Elias with a chill in his spine. Elias thought about destroying it, but was too curious. He turned on his extraction device and linked the sphere to his brain. The moment it connected, his mind exploded with images: ancient cities, endless oceans, smiling faces, and one word repeated over and over: origin. When he disconnected, Elias was sweating and shaking. This thought was not just powerful, it was alive. His mind raced, and one thing became clear: someone would do anything to get it back. Chapter 2. The Hunt. Elias woke up in the back of his shop, still shaken by the images he had seen in the sphere. The word origin echoed in his mind, impossible to forget. He had spent a sleepless night trying to understand the vision. Who was the woman who had given him the thought? And why was it so dangerous? While sipping bitter coffee, his holographic communicator beeped sharply. He approached it cautiously. A message appeared on the screen. "We have your informant. Return what she gave you, or face the consequences." Conservatory. Elias's heart raced. The woman had been captured. But how had they found her so quickly? He glanced at the gray sphere, which now seemed to pulse faintly. It was more than just a thought. It was a ticking bomb, ready to disrupt everything it touched. He didn't have much time to think. Shortly after, a man entered the shop. He was elegant, dressed in a sharp black suit, carrying a briefcase. His shoes shone like mirrors. Elias had never seen a client like this before. "Mr. Kern," the man said in a calm, firm voice, "I know you have something very valuable. I'm willing to offer you a sum that will change your life." Elias crossed his arms, trying to stay calm. "I don't sell without knowing who I'm selling to and why. What essential are we talking about?" The man gave a faint smile. "Let's not play games. The gray sphere. I'm offering 50 million credits." The number made Elias catch his breath. It was enough to retire and live peacefully for the rest of his life. But something felt wrong. The man knew too much and was too confident. He wasn't an ordinary customer. "It's not for sale," Elias said, clenching his jaw. The man tilted his head slightly. "Do you know the risk of keeping it? I'm not just talking about you. I mean everything you care about. Your family, your friends, even this shop. Think carefully, Mr. Kern." Without waiting for an answer, the man stood up and left. Before leaving, he turned back. "Here's my contact. Don't wait too long. The conservatory is not patient." Elias felt the weight of the threat. The door closed, leaving him alone with his thoughts. Night fell quickly, bringing an uneasy silence. Elias locked his shop and sealed the windows with security barriers. He was sure someone was watching him. He placed the sphere in a shielded container and prepared to spend the night with a weapon by his side. His instincts were right. A sudden explosion shattered the shop's entrance. Metal and glass flew everywhere, and a group of masked men stormed inside, armed and determined. Elias grabbed the container and hid behind a counter, holding his breath. "Find him!" one of the men shouted. Elias knew he had little time. He used a secret exit in the back of the storage room, a tunnel leading to the city's alleys. Clutching the container to his chest, he slipped out quietly, but the sound of footsteps behind him told him he had been discovered. The streets were dark and empty. Elias ran, his heart pounding as he tried to lose his pursuers. A pulse gun shot zipped past his head, lighting up the shadows of the alley for a moment. "Stop, Kern! You can't escape!" But Elias didn't stop. He reached an old abandoned warehouse and hid among the rubble. Silence returned, broken only by the sound of his heavy breathing. The sphere was still safe, but Elias knew his life had changed forever. He could no longer return to his shop or his old way of living. Hiding in the shadows, Elias realized he could no longer ignore the weight of the forbidden thought. Whatever truth it held, it was powerful enough to scare the most dominant forces in the world. He decided to find someone who could help him decode the message without falling into the conservatory's hands. With one last look at the starry sky, Elias clutched the container and disappeared into the night. The hunt had just begun, and he was no longer just a merchant. He was a fugitive, the keeper of a truth that could change everything. Chapter 3. The Conservatory. Elias wandered through the city's shadows, avoiding every camera, drone, and patrol. The container holding the gray sphere was secure in his bag, but its weight seemed heavier with every step. He needed allies, someone who could help him understand the forbidden thought and protect it from the conservatory. Through whispers in the underground networks, Elias found them, a small group of rebels who called themselves the Liberators. They believed that thoughts should never be bought or sold. To them, the commercialization of human minds was a crime against freedom. Elias met them in an abandoned subway station, its walls covered in graffiti and old posters calling for revolution. Their leader, a sharp-eyed woman named Mara, examined him carefully. "You're the one carrying the forbidden thought," she said, her voice steady. Elias nodded. "I don't know what it is, but the conservatory will kill me to get it back. I need your help." Mara gestured to a small group of people behind her, each one skilled in hacking, engineering, or medicine. They all looked at Elias with a mix of suspicion and hope. "We've been looking for a thought like this," Mara said. "If it's as powerful as they say, it might be the key to ending their control." Elias hesitated. "I don't even know what it really contains. I saw visions, a word, origin. But I don't understand it." Mara's expression hardened. "Then it's time we found out." The rebels explained that the conservatory had a secret database where they stored all forbidden thoughts. These thoughts were too dangerous to destroy, but they were locked away to prevent anyone from accessing their power. "The database is deep inside the conservatory's headquarters," Mara explained. "If we can break in, we might find the truth about your thought, and the truth they've been hiding from the world." Elias agreed to join them. They worked for days, planning their infiltration. Mara's team built fake identities and hacked into the conservatory systems to create a small opening in their defenses. The plan was risky, but it was the only way. Inside the conservatory, Elias and the rebels moved like shadows. The halls were sterile and cold, filled with guards and security cameras. Thanks to the rebels' careful planning, they reached the database room undetected. Elias placed the gray sphere into a terminal. The screen lit up, showing lines of encrypted data. Mara's team worked quickly, bypassing the security layers. Finally, the sphere's content was revealed. Elias stared at the screen as images filled the room. Fields of green stretching endlessly under a clear sky. People laughing, working together, free from the glowing spheres that now controlled their lives. Words appeared, a forgotten past where humanity lived without chains. No conservatory. No control. Only freedom. The thought of origin wasn't just a memory. It was a blueprint for how life used to be before the commercialization of minds. The conservatory had erased this history, ensuring no one could imagine a world beyond their control. Mara's voice was sharp. "This is why they fear it. If people knew this truth, their entire system would collapse." Suddenly, alarms blared. The conservatory had detected the breach. Guards flooded the halls, their weapons ready. The rebels fought their way out, using smoke bombs and decoys to distract the guards. Elias clutched the sphere tightly as they ran. The conservatory could erase him, but they couldn't erase the truth now burning in his mind. As they reached the surface, Mara turned to Elias. "This is just the beginning. If we spread this knowledge, we can bring their system down." Elias nodded. The thought of origin wasn't just a relic of the past, it was a spark for the future. And he would do whatever it took to ignite it. Chapter 4: Betrayals. The rebels' hideout was a maze of underground tunnels, dimly lit by flickering bulbs. Elias sat at a makeshift table, the gray sphere resting in front of him. Its faint pulse seemed to synchronize with his own heartbeat. Mara entered the room, followed by a woman with sharp features and an intense gaze. She carried a small bag filled with strange devices. "This is Lyra," Mara said. "She's a scientist who worked for the conservatory. If anyone can decode that thought, it's her." Lyra gave Elias a nod but didn't smile. Her movements were precise, her eyes scanning the room as if calculating every risk. "You don't trust me," Lyra said, setting her bag on the table. "That's smart. But you need me if you want to unlock the full truth of what's inside that sphere." Elias leaned back in his chair, his arms crossed. "You worked for them. Why should we believe you?" Lyra's expression darkened. "I left because I saw what they were doing, stealing minds, erasing lives. This thought you're protecting? It's what they fear most. I want to help bring them down." Elias studied her carefully. Her words felt genuine, but there was something in her sharpness that unsettled him. Lyra's devices hummed as she worked on the sphere. Wires connected it to a small terminal that displayed streams of complex data. Elias watched as fragments of the thought appeared on the screen, images of freedom, words about a forgotten past, and a map that seemed to point to a location far outside the city's limits. "This isn't just a memory," Lyra said, her voice filled with awe. "It's a guide, a key to a place where humanity might still be free." Elias's breath caught. "A place outside the conservatory's control?" Lyra nodded. "If we find it, we could expose everything. But it won't be easy. They've locked away this information for a reason." As Elias and Lyra worked, tension grew among the rebels. Mara noticed it first: whispered conversations, stolen glances. Someone was acting strange. One night, while Elias was examining the map, he overheard an argument in the adjacent room. "I'm telling you, we have a spy." Mara's voice was sharp. "Someone leaked our location to the conservatory." A rebel named Joran, a quiet man with a shadowy past, stepped forward. "You're being paranoid," he said. But Mara wasn't convinced. "We've had too many close calls. Someone here is feeding them information." Elias felt a cold shiver. He looked at the gray sphere, realizing how much danger it had brought to everyone around him. The truth came out the following night. As Elias and Lyra worked late, the hideout was suddenly attacked. Explosions rocked the tunnels, and the rebels scrambled to defend themselves. In the chaos, Elias saw Joran speaking into a hidden communicator. "They're here," Joran said. "I've done my part. Make sure I'm extracted safely." Rage boiled inside Elias. He lunged at Joran, knocking the communicator from his hand. "You sold us out!" Elias shouted, pinning him to the ground. Joran sneered. "You don't understand. The conservatory isn't just a system. It's survival. You think you can take them down? You're just a fool with a dream." Mara arrived, her weapon drawn. "We don't have time for this. We need to get out of here now." The rebels scattered, using their knowledge of the tunnels to evade the conservatory's forces. Elias stayed close to Lyra, the gray sphere tucked safely in his bag. As they emerged into the cold night, Elias turned to Mara. "What now? They'll keep hunting us." Mara's face was grim. "We regroup. But we can't trust anyone, not even each other." Elias glanced at Lyra. She had proven her worth, but doubt lingered in his mind. Was she truly on their side? Or would she betray them like Joran? Clutching the sphere, Elias realized that every step forward would bring more danger, more betrayal. The thought of origin was powerful, but its cost was becoming clearer with each passing day. "Then we keep moving," Elias said, his voice firm. "We find the place this map leads to, no matter what it takes." Mara nodded, and the group vanished into the shadows, leaving their ruined hideout behind. The hunt for the truth, and the fight for survival, was far from over. Chapter 5. The Truth. Elias and Lyra sat in a small, hidden room, far from the conservatory's reach. The gray sphere rested on the table between them, glowing softly. The rebels had scattered after the last attack, leaving Elias and Lyra to finish the work alone. "This is it," Lyra said, connecting the sphere to her small machine. "We'll finally know the full truth." Elias nodded, his heart pounding. The thought inside the sphere had caused so much trouble. He needed to know why. The machine lit up, showing words and images on the screen. Elias leaned closer, reading carefully. The thought explained that the technology to extract thoughts had been invented many years ago. At first, it was created to help people. It allowed them to remove painful memories or share beautiful ideas with others. The original goal, Lyra said, was freedom. People wanted to control their own minds, to live without fear or pain. Elias watched as the images on the screen changed. He saw smiling faces, people helping each other, and a world full of creativity and kindness. But then the screen darkened. New images appeared, powerful leaders, factories producing glowing spheres, and people with empty eyes. "The government stole the technology," Lyra whispered. "They saw a way to use it for control." The thought revealed that the government had erased the collective memory of humanity. They used the technology to remove ideas about freedom and replace them with fear. "They made people believe the world had always been this way," Lyra said. "That buying and selling thoughts was normal. But it's a lie." Elias felt a chill run down his spine. The thought of origin was more than just a memory. It was a warning and a map to a better future. What now? Elias stood up, pacing the small room. If people knew the truth, they would fight back. "We can't keep this to ourselves." Lyra looked at him, her face serious. "If we share this, the conservatory will do everything to stop us. They won't let their power go easily." Elias clenched his fists. "I don't care. This is bigger than us. We need to let the world see what they've lost, and what they can have again." Elias and Lyra copied the thought into a small device, one they could share with others. They knew the conservatory would come for them, but it didn't matter. "This is the beginning," Elias said, holding the gray sphere one last time. "The truth is out now. They can't erase it again." As they prepared to leave their hiding place, Elias felt a sense of hope he hadn't felt in years. The fight wasn't over, but they had something powerful on their side, the truth. And the truth, he realized, could set everyone free. Chapter 6. The Sacrifice. Elias and Lyra hid in an abandoned building on the edge of the city. The small device containing the thought of origin was ready. Elias had spent days creating a plan to share the truth with the world. "We'll send it through the underground network," Elias said. "People will see the truth, and they'll start to fight back." Lyra nodded, but her face was serious. "The conservatory won't stop, Elias. They'll come for us." Elias looked at her. "Then we'll keep running. We've come too far to give up now." Late that night, Elias connected the device to an old terminal in the building. It hummed softly as the thought began to upload. The underground network would carry the message to secret groups all over the city. "It's working," Lyra said, watching the progress on the screen. Elias felt a wave of relief. But his relief didn't last long. A loud noise came from outside, a crash, followed by shouting. "They've found us!" Lyra exclaimed. The conservatory's forces stormed into the building. Elias grabbed the device and tried to protect it, but there were too many of them. Lyra pulled him back. "Go, Elias. Take the device and run." "What about you?" Elias shouted, panic rising in his chest. "I'll hold them off," Lyra said firmly. "This mission is bigger than us. The truth has to get out." Before Elias could argue, Lyra pushed him toward a hidden exit. "Go now." Elias ran through the dark tunnels, clutching the device. Behind him, he heard the sounds of fighting. Lyra was holding back the conservatory to give him time. Tears filled his eyes as he kept running. He didn't want to leave her, but he knew she was right. The thought of origin had to be shared. Elias reached a safe house far outside the city. He connected the device to another terminal and watched as the thought finished uploading. The message was now spreading to people everywhere. He sat back, exhausted and heartbroken. Lyra had sacrificed everything, but her courage had made it possible to complete their mission. Days later, Elias began hearing whispers in the streets. People were learning the truth. Small groups were organizing, questioning the conservatory's control for the first time. Elias knew the fight was far from over, but Lyra's sacrifice had given them a chance, a spark of hope that could grow into a fire. "Thank you, Lyra," he whispered, looking up at the stars. "Your sacrifice won't be forgotten." And with that, Elias prepared for the next step in the fight for freedom. Chapter 7. The Epilogue. The thought of origin was everywhere. It spread like wildfire, carried by the underground network Elias had trusted. People all over the city began to remember things they had forgotten, things that had been hidden for a long time. The thought woke them up. It made them realize how much they had lost. Elias watched from a safe distance, hiding in the shadows. He was a fugitive now, always on the move, always looking over his shoulder. The conservatory was still hunting for him, but he had done what he set out to do. The truth was out. People gathered in secret places, talking about the things they had learned. They shared stories of a time when the world was free, when thoughts were not controlled. Some people cried because they remembered a past they never thought they would see again. Others were angry, demanding answers from the government. Elias could hear the change in the streets. There was hope now, where there had been only fear. People were waking up. Elias stood at the edge of a quiet park, watching the people walk by. For the first time in a long while, he felt something he hadn't felt in years: hope. He knew the battle wasn't over. The conservatory would fight back. But Elias also knew that people were ready now. They were ready to stand up for their freedom. Elias turned away from the park and started walking. He wasn't sure where he was going, but he knew his journey was far from finished. There's more to do, he thought to himself. The world needs to be reminded of who they really are. The fight for freedom was just beginning. Elias had started it, but it would take many others to finish it. Together, they would bring about the change the world needed. And Elias, with the thought of origin still in his heart, was ready to lead the way. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe.